G'day runners, welcome to Running Alive. In this video I'm going to take you through my current marathon base training. With it there'll be a few tips on how you can probably apply it to your own program. So what's base training? Most people think it's lots of slow training, keeping down the intensity, pushing up the volume, lots of long slow distance work. And to a point, for some applications, that might be the case. For me, the point of base training is a bit different. I find the point of base training is to develop a well-conditioned athlete capable of optimally responding to the demands of competition-specific training. Sounds complex, but what does it mean? Well, basically, it's training to train. And training to train is about getting fit enough to be able to handle the really hard training that makes up your competition specific work. The better your base, the harder you can train further down the track, and the more gains you can get as it gets closer to your racing. So I set up my training in 4 to 5 day blocks. And at the moment, given my circumstances, I'm doing a lot of extra work. The hours with this virus stuff, my work is flat out. Lots of night shifts, extra hours, more shifts. I haven't really got a pattern. So only looking 4 to 5 days ahead seems to be the best approach for me at the moment. And in those 4 to 5 day training blocks, what I'm trying to include is a long run, a tempo run, some strength training, both running specific stuff, mainly lower body, then another session that involves basically the rest, the other stuff, and then dotted amongst that will be the easy runs. And how these sessions fit in those days, they will vary with each block. Really, it's about the best fit. I'm going to try and separate the tempo and the long run with 1 or 2 days in between. I could start with the long run, it could be the second session, it could be whatever. Basically, I'm going to keep tabs on keeping recovery, and if needed, I'll stick in an extra easy day or recovery day in between the training blocks. It's a work in progress. These times are uncertain. At the moment, I'm still able to run outside. That may change in the not too distant future as isolation and lockdown gets stronger. This plan though allows me to adapt, and it also is a good setup for other situations as well. So the tempo run is just my little bit of introduction into something a little bit faster or a little bit harder running. I'm going to keep it within a heart rate zone, and that will be somewhere between 75% of heart rate max and 87%. I'm not too concerned about exactly where I sit. I'm just going to go run out, make it feel like it's a good, steady, consistent effort, and it's just that little bit of introduction to get my legs and in particular my Achilles used to something a little bit faster. Pushing it any quicker than that will still leave my Achilles at risk, and I know that the faster running at this stage still leads to a bit of a flare up or a return to some inflammation and injury. So the basic approach with these tempo runs is I'm going to start out at 20 minutes, and each time around we'll probably add about 5 minutes to the run. Now about every 2 weeks or so, the time frame isn't exact, I'm going to replace that tempo run with a math test. So it is the Phil Maffetone test where he's talking about maximal aerobic function. And for me, being 42 years old, 180 minus 42, that gives me a heart rate of 138. The point for me is to run about 8 kilometres at exactly that heart rate. The idea as my training progresses is I should be able to maintain that exact same heart rate. How much I slow down from the start of the run to the end of the run should reduce, while the average speed of the run should improve over time. I'm not following the Phil Maffetone training program. I'm not limiting my training to below that heart rate as such, but I have tried it out in the past, and to be honest, it's a good reference point that I can go back over the years for my own training. Probably my favourite run. The long run, the aim is to get in about 2 hours and maintain a heart rate between 65 and 75% of heart rate max. The pacing, don't really care about it, but I'm hoping to keep an even pace from the start all the way to the end. Nothing much more complicated than that. About every second long run, I aim to increase the distance or the time frame out by about 10 minutes. Every second block, I will limit that run to sticking on 2 hours, and then alternating between 2 hours, 2 hours 10, 2 hours, 2 hours 20, if I'm able to progress safely. As long as the Achilles isn't flaring up, I should be able to do that. And for the strength training, well, I'm going to do one key session, and this is the session that will make sure I include in every training block, and it's my run specific strength training. So at the moment I'll be concentrating on the calves, Achilles strength, the hamstrings, the glutes. So predominantly leg work with some core strength stability training. That is the primary strength training session. I will always include this. If I have to skip a run, which will usually be an easy run, to make sure I include this, then I will. The strength training listed as other, well, that's the rest. That can be the fun stuff, the upper body work, so overhead presses, pull-ups, more core work, basically anything that isn't run specific but still need to include in order to stay fit for the rest of life, for my work, for everything else. That's what I do. And the easy runs, well, they're the runs that are dotted in between. Ideally, I would be loving to run between 60 and 90 minutes, but I know how time pressed things are at the moment, so it could be, well, really it's going to be between 30 and 90 minutes. Sometimes it's before a 6 a.m. Work start, so still getting up at 4, that only gives me about 30 minutes worth of training to fit in. The pace of these easy runs, well, it's more intensity based, so again, I'm going to keep the heart rate between 55% and 75% heart rate max. These will feel excruciatingly slow. They are so slow that I've turned off the pace data fields on my Garmin. I just don't want to know how slow they are. But it's part of mental strength, part of the discipline, part of the intensity discipline that will allow me to get the further training done. Which is one reason why I'm including a semi-regular math test. By keeping that test in, I'll be able to keep track of improvements around that first threshold, that what is often termed aerobic threshold. Basically, what sets you up with a good base. So that's the plan. Pretty simple. 4 or 5 days in that, I'm going to include a long run, a tempo run, some strength training, and some easy runs. It sounds simple, it needs to be. It's easy to adapt according to different roster cycles and other commitments. And while I'm still able to run outside at the moment, it's quite doable. Nothing overly hard in it. What becomes hard is being able to maintain that consistency over a long period of time. Hope you find this helpful. Let me know if you have any comments or queries or questions down in the comments below, and keep on running.